and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec Podcast, where I'll help you create teams worth leading, because life's too short to lead a mediocre team. As always, I'm your host, Aviv Ben-Yosef, Tech Executive Coach and Consultant, and our subject today is Time to Dream. Before getting started, I want to remind you that I've got a new tier added to Unplugged with Aviv. Usually, Unplugged has a in-depth session that we do once a month where you can learn about something related to the role of a tech executive. You can submit questions live before the session and after it, and you get access to the entire back catalog once you subscribe. The new tier, if you want it, also allows you to submit as many async questions to me and I'll get back to you. So if you want to get like Aviv in your pocket, that's your way to go. Check it out. The link is in the video description, in the show notes of this episode, And let's talk about Time to Dream. Sometimes when I talk to executives, I notice that they're too myopic. They're only looking ahead one step. They're not thinking about the bigger picture. And the problem with that is if you're never taking a second to assess where you want to go, what you're thinking, what your goals are personally and for your organization, you're going to end up under-delivering. You're going to underutilize yourself and your team because it's a lot harder to over-deliver in general. And most people, if they don't set any goals, any timeframes, not even a concrete deadline, what ends up happening most of the time is that we let things slip. We're not at the top of our game. I've seen this not just with tech, but with many executives, many organizations. And I believe that having actual goals, taking a second to think where we want to go is very, very useful. I've got my own personal examples in life, be it professionally, because I wanted to become independent. I wanted to change to what I'm doing right now, more consulting than what I did before years ago. And I set that as a goal, and I had a metric of seeing how much closer I was getting to doing only that through time. And since before COVID, this is what I'm doing 100%, and I'm loving it. This is something that I'm sure wouldn't have happened if I didn't take a second to think, what actually do I want to do? Where actually do I want to see myself in a few years? And also personally, as a family, years ago, I started setting the goal of I knew I wanted to move my family abroad for at least a few years to experience a different culture, to learn another language, to learn how things happen, not just in that one country where we happen to be born in. And I remember this starting as something that I thought was just a dream, something that would not happen, something that's, extremely unlikely, but slowly and surely, because that was the objective I had set, we started moving towards it till, here I am in Rome, almost a year and a couple of months, and, having a really good time and really, really being grateful for the opportunity. And I know this never would have happened. No way if we hadn't set it as our own goal, which never would have happened if we didn't take time to dream. And this is what I want you to take away from this episode. I want you to think about how often do you take a second, a moment, and consider where you're headed, where you'd like to be headed. Assess how you're doing, what's giving you energy, what's driving you, what's the source of your motivation right now, why you're doing what you're doing, and what would you like to see yourself doing in a few months, in a couple of years. Because if we never take a second to think about that, we're just going with the flow. And I've got an old blog post about being a floating leader, which is about people who are just going with wherever the flow is taking them. And unfortunately, that often means that, maybe the road might be easier, but the destination is usually not the best one, not an optimal one, and not what you deserve. I personally think that leaders who never take the time to think are doing a disservice to themselves, but also to their teams. I recently talked to an executive who's in charge of the technology and the product in the company who said that over the course of a quarter or two, he maybe spent a couple of hours thinking about the roadmap for the next few months to a year ahead, which meant that they were just always grabbing the next thing in front of them. And as a company, that greedy algorithm of finding features to feed engineering might work out okay over the course of a few months. But when it comes to what's happening right now, when we're looking at our industry, when we're seeing how fast things are changing, how profoundly we have to change how we're doing things if we want to ensure that we remain a top 5% sort of organization, we have to take the time and think about how we're doing things, decide about experiments, decide about changes, assess how things have been happening, have been growing, and where we have opportunities. Talk about that with people. All of that would never happen spontaneously or would happen extremely slowly and rarely. If you want to actually lead your organization, you have to put in the time to think about how, where, when you want to take your team. It's not something that just happens naturally. Teams do not improve naturally with time. Some people tell you, you need time, you need to mature. But that maturity does not just happen because you've waited, you've watched your clock watch, and you just waited a year and okay, now we're there. No, that experience does not happen naturally. To gain experience, to improve, to have that maturity, you have to put in some thinking. I know it's tough. As an executive, you already have a lot of things to do. I'm sure your schedule is overloaded. That's why I think, a video or a past podcast episode about the calendar reset. I'll try to link to it in the show notes if I find it easily. But if you need something more substantial, you can always reach out to me and I will help you get there. Because I think life's too short to waste it leading a mediocre team, and you're guaranteed to have a mediocre team at best if you're never taking the time to dream, to think where you're headed and how you're going to get there. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope that you'll at least find a bit of time to do a bit of dreaming this week. If you have any questions or comments, my email's in the show notes. If you want to check out Unplugged, again, the link to that will also be in the show notes. And as always, if you haven't yet, do check out my newsletter, which goes out every week with this podcast, an article, a video, and some other free goodies. Also, the link, I'm sure you get it by now, is in the show notes. I'll see you here next week. Ciao.